Everyone, welcome back to Life in Technologies YouTube channel. I hope you're doing well and thank you so much for watching this content and supporting our channel. So this is part 5 of our service configuration and HoVPN architecture implementation on Huawei routing devices. And in this section, we'll be focusing on how to do VRF configuration or the VPN instance configuration and troubleshooting on Huawei routing devices. So we know that in the last 4 sessions, we've covered different sections of this lab implementation. The first session covered how you do the data planning, how you plan the VLANs, how you do IP address planning, how you do the VPN instance planning, and even the host name, how you name your devices. And then in the second part, which is part 2, we focused on how to do the basic configuration, configuring the host name, configuring the IP addresses, both on the physical interfaces and also on the logical interfaces, the loopback IPs. And then in part 3, we focused on IGP implementation. How do you configure IGP on this network? How do you troubleshoot? How do you test to ensure that you have connectivity between different nodes and ensure that your IGP is well configured and there is connectivity in your MPLS backbone network. In the last session, part 4, we focused on how to do MPLS configuration and MPLS LDP so that we are preparing the network to be ready to carry different services on the same existing infrastructure without the need to build separate network for different services. So in this session, we are focusing on how to do VPN instance or the VRF, virtual routing and forwarding configuration and troubleshooting on Huawei devices. But again, before we dive into the configuration, just a kind reminder that if you are watching this video or you're watching this episode, or even you've watched our previous sessions and they are helpful to you, kindly subscribe to our channel and even support by sharing with your connections. It could be LinkedIn, it could be any channel that you can reach out to them. Just support by sharing the content with the colleagues or your connections in different social platforms. So I've mentioned that we are focusing on VPN instance configurations, and we know that VPN instance plays a very important role. We are just trying to isolate or segment services into some kind of logical routers. So we have one physical router. This physical router, we can segment it into small logical routers so that we are isolating the services for different technologies. In this example, we have 5 technologies: 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, O&M. We don't want these services to be mixing with each other. So we are doing some kind of separation or segmentation of these services in kind that we have separate logical routers for separate services in our network. And when we talk about VRFs or the VPN instances, there are some key things that you need to understand. The first one is the VPN name. So you need to have a VPN name, and that name should relate to the service that is carried by that VPN or the customer name. For example, you can see that we are naming 2G VPN for the 2G services. We have 5G VPN for 5G services. So it's very easy to relate to the VPN name and the kind of services that they are carrying. And then we have the route distinguishers and the route targets. So the objective of route distinguishers is to make the VPN v4 routes unique and allow customers to use overlapping addressing spaces. So you need to do proper planning of the route distinguishers. You know that we have different types of route distinguishers: type 0, type 1, type 2. We will be using type 1 in this lab simulation, and it's the most recommended type of the route distinguisher. And then we have route targets. So the route targets control the route import and export in a network. So you have the one for export, you have another one for import. So you also need to do proper planning of the VPN targets or the route targets. So ensure that you configure the correct import and export VPN targets on your network. So these are the configuration that we need to make. First, we need to configure the VPN instance for different services. You can see that we have 2G VPN, 3G VPN, 4G VPN, 5G, and then O&M, just to carry different services as per the naming. And then remember, we only have IPv4. addressing family configured. If you have IPv6, you also need to configure the IPv6 family, and you will have to configure the route distinguisher and also the VPN targets. And then we have this route distinguisher. So we are configuring the route distinguisher, and the route distinguisher is configured using the loopback IP. Remember, we are using type 1. So with type 1 route distinguishers, first it's the loopback IP or the system IP of the node, and then you add a random number. So you can see that it's 1.1.1.1 double colon 1. So for the different VPN instances, we will be using different random numbers, but the loopback IP remains at the first part of the route distinguisher. And then the next part, we need to configure the export and the import VPN targets. So this one you also need to do proper planning. So for the different services, you can see these are the configured details for different VPN instances. We have a different route distinguisher, we have a different VPN target. And then another important command you can see here is you can apply label. You can configure this mode of applying the labels. So you can either do apply label per instance or per route. So per instance means one label will be assigned per instance, or you can do per route. So one label or each route in the routing table of this VPN will have a different label. So many times we use per instance. So these are the configuration for the different nodes. Only the route distinguisher will be changing, but all the others will remain. Remember, you need to have NP advertising the route to the SPE. So you need to ensure that the VPN target for import and export are correctly configured between the different nodes. So let me go ahead and do the configurations, starting with the SPE, starting with the NPE. So I need to copy this. This is for NP1. So I'll go to NP1, then paste. I'll do the same for other nodes, NP2. Just copy it again. So this is NP2. I'll press Shift, let it highlights, and then copy. I go to NP2 system. I paste the configurations, quit. I need to do the same for SP1. So SP1, the configurations runs up to this point. I'll copy, go to SP1. In the system view, I need to paste. So you can see that the configurations are taking effect. I need to finish with SP01, SP02. So for SP02, we also need to do these configurations. I'll copy, go to SP02 and paste. Finally, we configure the UPEs. So for the UPEs, we also have to change the loopback for the route distinguishers. So you have UP1. And finally, we can do the last UPE, and then we can do the verification. It should be up to this point. So this is for the UP2. Can quit. So we've finished configuration for the VPN instance. Some of the commands that you can run to verify: display IPVPN instance, display IPVPN instance verbose, or display IPVPN instance interface. You will be able to see which interfaces are configured under which VPN instance. If you've already configured the services, you also need to display the routing table, and you should be able to see the routing table of different VPN instances. So let's just log into one of the nodes, for example, SP1. If I display IPVPN instance, you can see that these are the VPN instances that we have. We can use the verbose of it. So when you do verbose, you can see that we have 2G VPN. You can see that create date is given. The address family, it's IPv4. The uptime has been given, just 1 minute 48 seconds. The route distinguisher, it's here. Route distinguisher has been configured correctly. The export VPN target, the import VPN targets. You can see that the label policy, label per instance. So it's label per instance, not per route. And then you can see the diffserv mode information. This is related to QoS. The TTL mode information is pipe, the log kinderfold. You can check the information for the other VRFs. You see the O&M, the uptime, the route distinguisher, and the route targets. I can display the interface. Remember that we don't have any interfaces configured for the different VPN, so it's 000. But once we configure the services, you should be able to see the number of interfaces in the different VPN instances. Remember, you can also use other, like if you want to display, for example, the routing table, just need to display IP routing table, then VPN instance, maybe to GVPN. But for this case, we still don't have any routes, but you can see that if you had these routes, you can use this command to check the routing table for the different VRFs. So these are the configuration, very straightforward. You just need to remember the route distinguisher should be unique. The VPN target for the import and export should be well planned. Then you can go ahead and implement the VPN configurations. So we are moving closer to starting the service configurations, and I hope it's much clearer compared to the other session, because this one I get time to explain the different aspects or the different working principles, or even command by command of what we are configuring and why we are configuring it. So thank you so much, and see you in the next episode. Bye.